Alright, hello there friends. Let me close the door and let's get started with today's stream. See, we have 2 viewers at the moment, so thank you for joining in. Hope you have a great time today, and good morning, good afternoon or good evening to you, wherever you are. Just know that you can always type in the chat and let me know who you are, where you're from. I'm always interested to learn about that, who's watching in the stream. Also, feel free to join in on coding today. If you have suggestions or questions, it's always good to ask. So today is the second week after my vacation. And the last couple of weeks we've been working on an SPFX Webpart, and we try to extend it using Azure functions and a Logic Apps custom connector, because we want to enable non-developers to add additional sources that can be displayed in this Webpart. So currently the Webpart is fetching data from for mail from the graph and from Jammer, but we want to be able to get data from other sources, also so sources that are not going to be supported out of the box with this Webpart. If you have been following along with my stream the last couple of weeks, we are currently, we've built the API, we've built a custom connector, and last week we were hooking it up in the SharePoint Webpart. Currently we ended the last streaming session where we were able to show the additional sources in the configuration of the Webpart. And today I want to take a look if we can take it one step further and actually get the data in runtime when someone is actually viewing the Webpart. Well, if you're following along, also don't forget to follow me. Just click that follow button and hit that notification toggle so that you always get notified when I start a new stream. And well, the last couple of weeks I tend to do this on Wednesdays on 4 p.m. Central European time, which is 7 a.m. Pacific time. And well, I kind of try to stick to this hour, so feel free to check back anytime on the Wednesdays. But for now, let's dive in and let's see where we are with the Webpart and, well, continue building it and hopefully finishing it functionally so we can take the next step. All right. So switching over to my desktop. First off, I want to get the Webpart in the state where we left it last week. So here in Visual Studio Code, I have the Webpart, which basically React components with some SharePoint specifics inside of it. And I will start to run that so that we can see what it does. And in the background, I already have the Azure functions running. So I have here in the Visual Studio for desktop, so the non-code version, I have this function running with basically the API that we're going to use. And it's currently available. I've done some tests, so we basically have a few endpoints that we can hit. And this Webpart is gonna hit that API. But first, let's start it, and we do that by go serve. And I don't want to spawn a browser, so I type in -- no browser, which only starts the hosting of the Webpart, and then I can open whatever workbench I want. So let's switch to my demo tenant, and let's launch the workbench. So every SharePoint Online has this workbench. So if you are on SharePoint Online and you enter this piece after the URL, then you will get on the workbench, and once you host it a Webpart in Visual Studio Code, you can select it here. So our Webpart is called my starting point, and it will now load this Webpart from my local machine so that I can test it out and see what it looks like. And I do it like this because now I am in the context of an actual SharePoint Online environment, and that allows me to do some actual stuff within the context of SharePoint Online. So if I go to edit, you can see here that we have this user data section, and for some reason I am not able to click add, which is kind of odd. Not sure why that is. Maybe something failed. Let's. Okay. This was a problem I had previously. Something with course. Thought I fixed that in my function. Yeah. It has course enabled, so why is it giving me so much trouble? That's kind of the issue here. So I'm using NGRock. So NGRock is a tunneling service. So you can go to ngrock.io, you can download NGRock from there, start it locally, and it will set up a tunnel from the internet to your local machine. I'm running NGRock over here, and since I'm using the free plan, it gives me a random subdomain every time I launch it, and it lasts for, I believe, up to 8 hours max. So as you can see, I'm running it now on a different. I've launched NGRock again since previous streaming session, of course, and it gave me a different subdomain. And you can see here previously we tried to access the API on a different subdomain. So in order to fix that, let's go into our Webparts. Let's go to the, where was that located? The data providers. We added a user data attribute options provider. Sorry about that name. Still not my favorite, but we'll have to do for now. I can change this to the different NGRock URL, or we can just accept that we are running locally now. so that I don't have to change it every single time while we are debugging this. So saving it will recompile, and as soon as it tells me to reload, I can refresh my page, and if all goes well, we won't see that error again. There we go. So this time let's click edit, and we don't get the error. Now we can click the add button, and if all goes well, here we are. So this is our custom source. So basically we have two built-in sources, Outlook with two options, Jammer with two options. Those are the built-in sources. And now we have two custom sources. One is the AFAST signals, and the other is the custom for my Postman source, which I added using Postman. So now we can select the signals, and we need to refresh in order to actually activate it. So we can now pick the source, which is then basically what it's calling my API. See it over here. So this is the NGRock inspect tool. Oh, we're not no longer running through NGRock, so that's not going to help us that much. We can obviously see it here, but it's not very readable. But you can see that it's hitting the user data attribute options using a get, and it will return a list of the options that are configured within the API, so that you can pick from those options. If we do that, for example, from Postman, and do the same query, so a get on this endpoint, and it will return, oh, sorry about that. Save. It returns two options with a description, category, and a callback URL. And that callback URL that's been registered through the custom connector, and this actually runs a logic app, or in our case we are using Flow to test it, but it could have been as well a logic app. As you'll notice, running now, so this keeps spinning, and we never get to see any value. So for example, if I were to, this doesn't work that well as well either. It's going, it's probably crashing. We just don't see it because it's not able to get the signals, and we don't handle it properly. And that's basically what we want to achieve today. So calling the API, so we have a different function, a different endpoint for that. So this will return a list of the options, and next up we can get a value by going to the user data attribute options, then the name of the category and the name of the option, and we do a send, we'll do a get, everything's still working, we expect to get a response. It's taking mighty long. That's because I clicked somewhere in the debug window. So I get a 200 OK. The result is a 0, which is to be expected. And if we look at the flow, refresh, can see that at 4:14 p.m. it ran our flow, and the flow basically did a lookup to AFAS, to the AFAS signals connector, and it returns the number of signals that are available for me. And for me, currently is hard-coded, so that's something that we want to add in the future, so that it gets the value of the currently signed in person. But from Postman, it works, and now we want to have this number, that's 0, we want to fetch that through the Webpart. So let's see. We need to figure out where it is called. So let's see if we can find that out. Let's start from the roots of our Webpart. So here we have our Webpart. Here we have the render function, and let's see, it's creating a new my starting points with some providers. And with the user data attributes that have been selected. So let's jump to the my starting points, select it, press F12, or right click, go to definition. And here we get the set the state. Data as a nil, make sure. And when it mounts, it runs the get user info. Then it goes to process the user data attributes. So if it's calendar event count, which it isn't, it's also not Outlook inbox and web messages. It's not Jammer. From so it renders the user notification, get user notifications. Yeah, so this is basically the render function. It will render each user notifications. Using a map, so it iterates over all the user notifications. And then it returns a user notification elements. And then it does a get user notification from user data attributes What the heck? That was defined here. And I noticed that this is a switch statement, but it obviously does not account for anything else than that's available in this list. And now that we have custom values, this switch will break, and that might be why it is failing. Let's see. Because what is it doing? It's getting the icon. It's getting props. We could add a default at least. Where we don't do anything. So we won't have an icon, which is fine for now. We can maybe change that later. We don't have an item count yet. We have a title and we have a URL. Most likely. I'm trying to see where it's actually getting the data. And for example, it's happening over here. So for the built-in one, if it's the calendar event count, it's gonna go to the data provider, get user meeting counts, then it is added to the state with a path, data type, URL, and it gets added to the states. It's happening here. Attribute not found. It's creating a new list of user data attributes where we update the data and the URL. And then the state is set. And this is run on the render. So when we update the state, the render is called again. When the render is called again, it will run through this piece of code, and this will return a different set of options. So it will have the data value. So we could extend this. Could make this async, by the way, which is maybe a bit nicer. It's not gonna turn void, but a promise void. And we could await this. Can also make this async. This is not necessary for our change, but it's at least a little bit nicer to work with. And you can await this. So that way we can better see that this is async code and we know it is running within a certain scope, so we can maybe handle errors or similarly. So now from this code we want to add some code here to get the values for our user data attributes, our custom ones. So can we find them somehow? They are in our props over here. We might be able to filter them, but how do we know for sure? Basically, we want to check if the key is not within one of the built-in keys. So we have this enumerator, which has a set of keys. So basically what we want to say is, alright, so we have the user data attribute, let's name it U. Q, the U key. We don't want to have that key inside that enumerator. See if we can get a list of the enumerator keys. Keys list. Should I let them see my weaknesses? How will they remember me when I'm gone? Should I let them see my weaknesses? How will they remember me when I not want to enumerate over the keys. What's the name of it? This is gonna help me better. Built-in keys, user data type. So this will give me a set of keys. I do not want to have the keys, right? Although the keys are exactly identical to the name, so maybe don't bother. But I could also convert this to the values using a map. But it's gonna be fine. So we have the built-in not some, something like any. I always forget the Typescript names. the equivalence of a link. I'm more used to using C# link, so most of the times I just search for Typescript link and so we could use some. Almost got there. So this don't. So I want to be sure that it's not in the built-in keys array. So now I have a list of the custom attributes. I can now do a fetch on each of them. We call this user data attribute options provider. Oh my god. Did we call this? Call it get user data attribute value, yeah, for you, yeah, for you. We want to do slightly bit more. So for example, so we want to await it. This does not exist yet, so we're gonna create this. So we're gonna public async get user data attribute value for the iUser data attribute option. So probably the type is different. iUser data attributes. Because hey, why use the same type? Because here we don't know the category anymore, and we need to the category. All right, probably we're using this one because this one have data, and the other one cannot. The other one's this description. This is the value. So where do they come from? Here it is, a user data attribute already in the props. So we need to go to the starting point of our web parts, and here they get injected. So we have here user data attributes and the properties. That's interesting. Since last time we were looking at the selector. Remove the property pane. And this is using user data attributes. Into the selector. Let's look the other way around. So here the provider is called and returns the attribute option. Where is this called? It's called the user data selector. So here it gets the options. When we select one, they push one in the iUser data attribute type. Right. So with the default of title, the key, maybe we can add the category. It would be the easiest way to do this. Maybe. Let's do that. So let's see. Go to models, data attributes. There's this option here, key text category, and we can add a property of type option here. Then we can get rid of the key. Or we simply add a category, which is more backwards compatible probably. So we actually add a category. Yes. And this will So this basically just gets the option. You can set data to the category maybe. Or the data to be the option itself. Maybe that's even prettier. Const. We get the option from the data, and we can use the category from there, and perhaps also the key from there. Okay, so this way we now have available the category. So if we now were to switch back, we don't need to category string. This is all we need. Let's set the base URL. We don't need to specify it each time. Just a bit nicer to read. This. In this case, we want to also add category, and we want to add the key to the fetch, and then we get response value. Wait, response JSON. And maybe we can return that right away. Currently, this will return a promise of type number. Then it will be over here. So in this case, now we can use the category property and the key property. Right, so in order to do that, we need to mark this as async as well. Now we have this value, and we can call and this is your key. I use a number, string. Fix it like this. Should do it.
Dismiss my real thoughts to protect my kids, or should I let them see my weaknesses? How will they remember me when I'm gone?
And then we have multiple sources to get. There was something like source all. So we can create
Everything I am is safe here in my
add the promises to a list. Then we can do here promise.all promises.
Selfish and borderline reckless. I mostly broke promises I put myself when I told myself till I could feel no more breath. I'd be better than this.
Yeah, this will just output the number, but then I would not know anymore for which attribute that was. Let's create another async method. Attribute value for user data attributes, type data attributes, and this will return a promise of type user data attributes. That sounds about right. Because then we could do this funny business. Let's check it out. It doesn't even need to return something. It can just be a void. What we just want to do is wait. So have a const value from that user data attributes category user data attribute key, then add it to the state. We want to try catch this maybe, or if it goes wrong. Catch e. Then we return this to a dash. It failed, so we cannot see. Do you see that it did something? Or not? And since this is now a promise void, then we're not gonna call the API directly, but do this dot get user data attribute value u, and it doesn't need to return, but now it will run in parallel. We have multiple attributes, which is kind of nice. So stream working. How is it going? I think we're on a roll here. Thanks for asking. So not sure if you joined just a couple of minutes ago, but what we are trying to do here is have a Webpart, a SharePoint Webpart, which is basically a React component calling an API, and we want to have that Webpart be configurable so that you can specify custom sources where the Webpart is getting its data from. So the Webpart has partially built-in sources, and we want to enable custom sources additionally. And we are now in the process of fetching the data from the source that has been configured. We just wrapped up, I think, the codes to do that, and we're now gonna test it out, see if it works. So it is compiled. It's ready to be reloaded, so let's hit reload and see what's going on. Boom. Well, at least it did something. Not what I wanted to, but it's throwing me a 500, and as you can tell already, this is because we configured the Webpart prior to making our change to also store the category. So the category now is undefined, and we should be able to fix that quite easily by removing and adding. So now it should have the category. Almost. It just took the wrong category. Why is it taking Outlook as the category here? That doesn't make sense, does it? Signals is okay. Category is not. Let's see. That probably has something to do with the configuration. So here we have the selector, and we told it to set the data to option, and on the add button click. That makes sense. So when we click the add button, so initially, let's see if we can. So this was our default state. So when I click the add button, this piece of code will run. It will get the first unused option, which in this case is the number of meetings, and it will take the data from there. So in this case, meetings today is in the Outlook category. So the category set to this option is now Outlook. If you were to change this to another, basically that's when the type changed, it is not overriding the category, so that's what we need to do. It should be an easy fix. So it gets the options, it gets the current option, which again is the I drop down option, then we can get the const user data. Let's do this piece of code. Why type if we can copy? Oh, really? Huh? Why is it trying to get the option when it already has the option? Which means basically, ooh, it's not. We need to find the I use a data attribute option. So let's rename this one as well. Get the key. Let's do it a string then anymore. Category. No. Category. So now we override it. So if the title is identical to the current option text, we change it. Otherwise, the user has changed it manually, and we don't want to override it. Okay. this should at least change the category for us. Let's give it a second to compile. Go. Now we need to reload to start. And we to edit, remove this one, add it back and put it to signals. Now if we refresh, we should have the category, correct category. And there we go. So now it says 0. Take a look at our flow. It should have run at around 5:01 p.m. There it is. So it did fetch data from our service. This is kind of awesome. Very nice. So now we have 0 signals and we are able to change properties and stuff. Still need to refresh, of course. We don't have a URL to go to, but that's something that we can fix. We don't have an icon, which is also a shame. So that would be kind of nice if we could also have an icon here. And that's an additional property to the option, so maybe we still want to have the option there as well. Let's see. So if we were to subscribe a new option, we feed it a key, which is basically the name for our option. We specify the category, but maybe we also want to specify it a icon. And we are using the icons from the Office Fabric UI, I think. Let's see, this one had a few icons. Icon from the Office UI Fabric. If you are not familiar with the Office UI Fabric, it's kind of cool. So there's this website, developer.microsoft.com/fabric, or you can just Google or Bing for Office Fabric UI. And what it gives you is standard controls for the web, iOS and Android, and styles for the web. Controls are kind of nice because they give you quite a few interesting controls to use. For example, well, they have some basic inputs, like a button in a specific style, just similar to what you have with Bootstrap. Also some galleries of pickers, so it's kind of interesting. A calendar picker, for example. But also a list. This is one that I used recently, the details list, which is the same list as that you're familiar with in SharePoint. But the cool thing about it is that, well, first it looks nice, and second it's quite extensible in an easy way, and it supports sorting, filtering. Well, you need to do some stuff to make it work, but it's easy to do. So I well, a lot of other stuff in here. That's stuff that I use regularly. But the other thing that they have is the styles. So they have colors and stuff, but they also have iconography. And they have the fabric icons that we're taking a look at in a second. And you have the Office brand icons, which is also kind of nice. So this gives you all the Office icons that are available that you can readily use in your applications. Also single color versions. Now we're going to look at the fabric icons because that's what we are using now. And basically you can pick an icon just by its name, and they have a bunch of icons as you can see here. And if we are enabling our sources to pick any of these icons, for example, there's something that is called signal or alert, maybe a bell. Clock. Maybe we want to use a clock for, so we can use this name, alarm clock, as the name for the icon. That's what we want to enable. So we need to add this property to our API so that we can actually use it. So let's do that first. So we go to Solution Explorer. In the subscribe, we need to be able that next to the text and the key, we're gonna also set the icon, and that should be the option dot icon that does not exist yet. So let's generate it. And it's not an object, but it's a string. Let's move it up. Moving complete line, you can do that you holding the Alt key and pressing the up or down buttons. So now it supports the icon in the subscription. We also need to add it here. So again, Control dot, generate property. There's F12 to jump to the definition. And now you can also set it to the entity. So this is in the subscription part. So now we can subscribe with an icon. We can test it out. So let's first unsubscribe our tests source. Unsubscribe should now have a category as well. I haven't tested it out yet. Get a response. That makes sense if you're not running it. We'll do this in a second. First, when we get the options, we do not just want to return this, we want to also return the icon. So now it will also return the icon. Hi, Mr. Codemore. Thanks for watching as well. Good to hear that I can give some tips. Some of the stuff I do automatically. I've learned them myself, so I tend to forget that there are some tricks for others. So if you see me stuff doing and you're wondering how does he do that, you just ask. nice things to know that you can move a line. So you can move multiple lines as well. So if you make a selection, you can move, not when you're in debug mode, of course, but you can move complete blocks of code using Alt, pressing up and down as well. It's quite useful because yeah, I tend to, in the past, use Ctrl X, Ctrl V, but it messes up your clipboard as well. And if you're just moving lines, it's not. It's a lot easier to using the Alt and arrow buttons. Yeah, I was launching the functions. And it works in code too, by the way. It's not just a Visual Studio thing. You can do it here as well. So I select a line, I can press up and down. Formatting. So it's now not formatted properly anymore. So I can go to View, Command Palette, or press Ctrl Shift P. And then I can type Format Documents or press Shift Alt F. And it will format my document. So a lot of the stuff in code can be done by this command window, pressing Ctrl Alt P, Ctrl Shift P, I'm sorry, and basically just type in what you want to do and it will suggest anything for you. My function is running again, so I can try now doing the unsubscribe. This time it worked, so if I look in, well, you can get the user data options. I should have one now. It's cool, and I can now subscribe the new one using my icon, and I should now get my icon back. Perfect. This is kind of nice. So my API now allows me to also provide an icon. Now let's update our custom connector so that I can also provide that option in Flow. So currently it supports the delete, sorry. Oh, I'm looking at the unsubscribe. I need to go to the subscribe trigger. Here's the requests. And in the body currently it's the callback URL, the category, and the title. But I want to add an additional property. So I can copy this URL to make it a bit easier for me. Import from sample. I want to do a get from this URL. And let's pick my sample request. It's most of the times the easiest. No, it's not a get, it's a post. So I need to specify a body. Imports. So this will give me the callback URL, category, icon now, and key. And what's it complaining about? First of all, I want to rename this category. I believe I've done this in the past. Have I downloaded the Swagger? Here's the Swagger. So this is basically the definition that's beneath my custom connector, which is it's the Swagger definition or an Open API specification. and it has some basic descriptions, but also the various APIs. So in this case too, we have the delete, and this is the create or the subscribe, and here we have the descriptions. So what I could have done is update the specification and re-import, or do it this way. I thought, well, let's show what it looks like if I do it this way. So that's the category, and the key, I believe I renamed it title. Yeah. And now the icon. And this can be any icon from the Office Fabric UI. See there. I3 Ender 3. This Windows Light theme looks darker than mine. Did you have to make any changes? Good question. I don't think so. I think I have the default light theme. Let me check that out. It is a custom theme, but it's, I think, just the background. Where do you set on the colors? Yeah, I just set to light. I enabled the transparency effects. Didn't do anything special. Maybe it's because of my background. Does it shine through? Let me check. What if I switch to the next background? Does it shines through the taskbar a little. So maybe you have a very light background. I'm not sure. I don't think I did anything special, but no worries to interrupt. Always free to ask. Let me get back to what I was doing. So I was updating my custom connector, and well, you can use any of the Office Fabric UI names. Did I do anything with the visibility? I don't think so. No, it's just the default. I just set the callback URL to be internal, because I do not want anyone to see this when they are using the trigger. So what is it complaining about? In the webhook response. Not it. Subscribe user. Webhooks must have one parameter marked as with X and as notification URL. Please select the call URL parameter in the trigger configuration. Okay, because I updated the requests. So when you use this custom connector Well, thanks 303 for following. That's always nice. So I'm just starting with streaming. I don't have that much subscribers or followers yet, so thank you for your confidence in following me. And watch out for the next streams in the next few weeks. So I've updated this request, and this request will be fired by the trigger when you save your flow, and it will do a call to my API to ask for a webhook registration. In the webhook registration response, it will get back a URL that is the URL that, where we have the callback URL. Oh, it will automatically be marked internal. I did this manually. Select the parameter that should receive the callback URL value. Required and internal, so I need to go back to the body. With this one and mark it required. Alright, there. But I'm trying to wrap my head around what I've just did. So thank you, Mr. Codemore, for also following. Very much appreciated. I hope that means that you do like watching the stream, and well, besides for some keyboard shortcuts, I hope you're learning, and well, hope you follow me in my next streams as well. Well, thanks at least for following. Yeah, so I was trying to understand what I just did. So for a webhook, I think I understand now what I've done. So maybe it's, oh, I can just show you it in a second. So when you save this flow with this trigger, it will do an API call to my API for registering the webhook, and it will send me a callback URL, which is generated by Flow. And what I needed to do was specify in the request that goes to my API, what is the parameter that Flow can use to set the generated callback. And I just told it that to use the callback URL, and now it's happy. And the callback URL needs to be internal and required. The other thing, and that I've done that already in my API, in the response that my API generates, I need to specify a location header where Flow can also unsubscribe again. So that location is the URL that it will send a delete HTTP request to in case of the removal of the flow or a change in the trigger. And we will take a look at that shortly. Let's just update the connector now. And then I can switch back to the flow. And our flow now should have an additional parameter for the icon. There it is. And now we can, what was it, alarm clock. I want to use the alarm clock as the example. I now make a change to my trigger, and this needs to be updated in my API. So when I save this flow, Flow will basically do two calls to my API. One, a delete of the previous trigger configuration, and the second is the registration or the subscription for the modified trigger. And we can see this in NGRock. So let me clear this. If I save, and it did save, you can see here we received the delete, and it goes to the alpha signals user attribute. And well, that's just a delete, and I get a new subscription, and this time with the icon. So if I run, get user data attribute options again. I was expecting to see my new subscription here. So where is it? Why didn't it work? Got accepted. Icons, alarm clock. It has the. What happened? Could it be there was some race condition that the delete came in a little bit later? That would not be very helpful, would it? Let's try that again. Signals 2. Again, a delete and a post. Boom. There it is. So yeah, probably the delete was later than the post, and then it deleted the. That's kind of annoying, but we'll fix that later because it won't happen that often. And it will only happen if you keep the title and the category the same, and you just change the icon. So now we have the same name we used to have, and this time we also have the icon. So now we can use that in our Webpart to show the icon. But if we want to have the icon on the user data attribute, we would need to add an additional property here. What we could also do is instead, well, we should be able to add. Let's do the icon string. String. So. And it could be nil if someone didn't specify an icon. Here it creates an iUser notification props. And now we should be able to icon equals user data attribute icon. maybe that's all we had to do. Using semicolon. Right, I can reload again. Okay, we don't have the icon yet, of course, because we need to re-add it so that the icon is set in our properties. And still no icon. Did I change it already in the selector? I need to set it here, of course. And if you don't do that, then it won't work. User data attribute option that's category icon. The question mark here, by the way, tells Typescript that icon can be null, so it does not necessarily need to be a string, and that's useful because sometimes if a user does not specify an icon, it can be. Then we also should not forget and this is a very dirty code, so this should maybe be rewritten. So I'm rewriting the same piece of code here, and I can easily make a mistake and forget to add one of the properties, and well, we've seen that earlier today, and it's not working as expected. And again, I'm missing, I did not save it. Oh, now I did. It's probably gonna recompile again. I just want to see that icon work before we wrap up for today. And going over it again, but it's just semicolon, so just ignore that and refresh. Re-edit, remove, add it again, set it to my custom, refresh, and give me an icon. No! Why you don't give me icon? Let's do a poor man debugging. It's really bad. Anyway, it works. I can also debug directly from code. Sometimes I find this easier. I just want to know what the value of something is. Go. Icon is undefined. Tell me about that. So it gets back. Maybe, just maybe, it is in my provider. Let's just casting it to the attribute option. Okay, let's do proper debugging. So debug hosted workbench. Yes. Oh, it's compiling first, I think. Ah, there we go. Right. I'll have to log in. Demo in Spark. Sign into your account. Go. Enter passwords.
Some say it's difficult to find, and the words they just stay inside. How about you start at the beginning? You woke up, go on, listen. Is life like
Right, so now we're in the same workbench, but this time in debug modes. So let's set a let's see what we get back from. I should select my Webpart first. It needs to load, otherwise I will hit the breakpoints, and there we go. So what do we have here? So we have signals, and signals has an icon. Okay, so far looking good. Then I want to know what we have here and what we have here. Continue, pressing F5. Add. Okay, this is the first. But I want to know what it has when I change to signals. So here we have undefined. Ah. Oh, look at that. I just made a stupid typo. I'm not getting the icon from the option, but from the actual target. That's just okay. Maybe I'm a bit tired now, making stupid mistakes. Just waiting for it to recompile. And it's gonna work now. I'm confident. This is gonna be the silly mistake that I've made. Reloads. Okay, let's see. Remove. Boom. Add. Okay, this is not relevant either. Now switch it to my custom signal. Icon is alarm clock. There we go. Moving the breakpoints here. So now we have set it to signals. Refresh. Boom! There it is. Okay. Looking good. All right. Excellent. So now we allow our users to also pick an icon by specifying in the trigger. Very cool. So if I were to pick another icon, for example, I rather like Skype circle clock. Save. Refresh. Maybe. It's probably the same problem again. Oh, okay. I've added it already. It doesn't work this way. Well, let's add a couple of more. Ah, yeah. Same problem I had earlier. That the delete is a little bit slower. Okay. And now it's back. Refresh. There he is. Okay. No, this is kind of nice. All right. So, yeah. Well, let's end on a high, I would say. So I would like to wrap it up for today. I think good achievements. So we were able to now get the data sources from our API and be able to configure them. Additionally added an icon, so you can even specify an icon for our custom data source, and in runtime be able to fetch the data from the data source. So this is a good achievement for today. And I think we have all the functional pieces in place right now, maybe except for the URL. So for example, this one we can click and it will take us to, in this case, the calendar. And what we might want to enable is that when you click this URL, that it will take you to a URL that we specify in our trigger. So that's something that we want to add later, and we'll continue on working on that in the next stream. And then it's time to make sure that we incorporate all the changes into a build that we run through Azure DevOps. So that's something that we're going to take a look at in the next stream as well. So probably going to be next Wednesday, same time. So if you are interested, please check back next week when we continue working on this. For now, have a good day, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And until next time, bye.